Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to the final story time for the Warzone Apothis narrative campaign. Spoiler alert, I am going to be revealing what happened in the last 3 games. If you don't want to know what happened before you actually watch them, make sure you go and watch them right now. In just a couple seconds I'm going to be talking about it. So we had our final 3 games, and yes, they are final. Maybe you can figure out which planet was blown up before I even tell you. But we had our final 3 games where we had the Necrons versus Tyranids, which is me versus Steve, Dave versus Leland with the Admech versus Chaos, and then the 4-player free-for-all. The game between Steve and I was really interesting because we both managed to get stuff inside and also managed to kill each other. I stopped a Catan from getting in, but he stopped Carnifex from getting in, so kind of even, kind of. And we both got lots of things in. Admech and Chaos had a really good early start, and then Admech came in kind of late game. And then the 4-player free-for-all was nuts. It just, the dice rolling was totally wacky, and there was raids phasing through walls, and everybody was just fighting everybody. Truths were made, and then broken alliances were forged and defeated. But in the end, it came really close as the Necrons were holding the main panel in the middle, and the Admech charged in, and they charged the wraiths that were holding it, and they started to fight them, and they just couldn't get through them in time. And the Necrons were able to activate the device and win the mission. And of course, Kanum, or Steve, being the tactician that he is, destroyed the planet that had his greatest threats, one being the largest amount of Tyranids, as well as the biggest Chaos present. So Dusal is no more. It's been blown up. It is now a bunch of little asteroids all over, and maybe it'll create an asteroid field. Or maybe there's bigger chunks of it with some things on it, but we don't know. It's been essentially removed from the campaign. And at this point, there's not a lot more that can happen. Like, we have Ixia, that is mostly taken over by Tyranids, but there's a bit of a Necron presence and some Chaos. Finet still has Admech controlling it. The Vadarak is mostly Necrons with just a few Tyranids, so it's actually majority controlled by that. We have our Space Hulk, which is about half and half Admech and Tyranids, and then Amon, which is controlled by Chaos, Necrons, and Tyranids almost equally, so nobody's really got a good foothold there. It would take an entire narrative campaign to really continue any of these stories, and so we're going to leave some of them open. Essentially what's happened at this point is that the Admech have up and left with their remaining forces, scavenging whatever they could, rallying all their troops. Still a good sizable force, but compared to what they were before, it's a shadow of their former selves. Kanum, of course, super happy that he was able to destroy so many Tyranids, still outraged that there's even Tyranids still alive, and so he's got an ongoing campaign to purge Vadarak and the rest of them. He shouldn't really have a problem purging Vadarak, because most of the Tyranids will be reeling from the loss of some of their main hive ships and their big feeding ground on Dusal. And Valonium, being the dead world that it is, it's just not of interest to the Tyranids anymore, so they'll depart from that. They might still be a nuisance down here on Amon to try to get some biomass right there, but for the most part, the Necrons are reigning supreme. And then the Admech will leave Finet. Who knows what they'll take with them? We may see them in a future narrative campaign. Wink, wink, just maybe. And that leaves it open for the Necrons to move in as well. So the Necrons have basically taken over the subsector. The Space Hulk, we're going to leave, because we don't really have anything that we've discovered on it quite yet. And so the Admech were in there. Are they still in there? The Tyranids were in there. Were they able to get back to the fleet? We're going to leave that for future campaigns or future battle reports, because it's just there's not enough of a story to make it in the finale. Overall, what we're looking at is the grand scale of things for this, and to leave the rest of it kind of open to be incorporated into future battle reports and narrative campaigns. So essentially, Kanum has taken dominance of this subsector, which is part of his MO. He's managed to take over a lot of other sectors as well, and a lot of other tomb worlds, and extend his dynasty. And so now he'll have even more soldiers and parts to finish constructing his world engine, which he is so determined to do. So we can only imagine what chaos and destruction he is going to ensue upon the rest of the Imperium right around where he is. So technically and essentially, the Warzone Apothis ended with a Necron victory. So woot for Steve and everybody who came in and supported him, or who played against him and lost, because you helped the cause as well, in order to be able to move the Necrons along. We still have further narrative for all of the other factions as well, but that'll have to wait for a future narrative campaign. I hope that you enjoyed this Warzone Apothis narrative campaign. Stay tuned for a new narrative campaign that'll be starting very soon. That'll be going back to the old style of the story times and battle reports. We'll be announcing that soon if we haven't done so already. And stay tuned for more battle reports and everything else. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your support, and happy wargaming.